I have the absolute pleasure in introducing Robina Begum from Reverse Mentoring. Robina is an education and EDI specialist who has worked within the mainstream and higher education, voluntary and community sectors for over 10 years. She has advanced education, revolutionised organisational cultures and empowered communities to take action through her work in tackling discrimination and intolerance in society. Robina is an advisor and member of the Greater Manchester Equality Alliance and is currently one of the reverse mentoring practitioners and consultants at the Reverse Mentoring Practice Limited. So welcome, Robina, and I will hand over to yourself to run today's session.
Thank you so much for having me today, and it's so good to see so many people from across the UK joining on from the fire service, and thank you for that quick introduction as well, Victoria. So really quickly, we are going to be spending an hour together, but it's a different type of listen and learn session. Today I'm going to try and get some interaction with you guys. I'm not going to bore you with my voice, and the Mancunian accent may be too fast for you guys, so do tell me if I'm going too fast as well. If you do have any questions, please, feel free to keep hold of them till the end as well. So really quickly, welcome to the Reverse Mentoring Listen and Learn session. As Victoria said, my name is Robina Ruby Begum. My pronouns are she, her, and I will be talking to you today about reverse mentoring and looking at eliminating discrimination one conversation at a time. But I want to give you an overview of what we're going to be touching upon today. So really quickly, I'll give you an intro to who I am in terms of my protected characteristics. We'll do quick cues because I want to know if, I want to gauge the room. How much do you already know about reverse mentoring? And then once we've done that, I'll give you a bit of history, and then we're going to have a conversation with Victoria about the reverse mentoring program that Victoria has completed with us at Cornwall ICS and how that came about and what it could mean for you at your fire service in your region or localities. And then we'll have some time for Q&As as well. So I am a British-born Muslim, practicing Muslim, hijabi woman who's Bangladeshi, heterosexual, academic teacher, and also a scholar activist. So I want to share that with you in the hope that it kind of bridges that gap of you getting to know me as well. A bit about what I've done in terms of my career really quickly. I actually have worked with the fire service in Greater Manchester before, and this was a decade ago. I actually used to work in the youth and community area within Greater Manchester. So did a lot of work with public sectors, looking at bridging the gap of Black and Asian minority ethnic groups within public sectors and trying to get young people through the door, as well as getting that representation and also changing the cultural nuance as well of the sector as well. Alongside that, I did teaching, got bored of it, moved into educational leadership, and then found my way into reverse mentoring because of the power that it brings in changing the conversations that we have around equality, diversity and inclusion. So I'm going to introduce to you the reverse mentoring practice, which is the company that I currently work for, and a bit about where we came from and what we do in relation to reverse mentoring. So the RMP journey, RMP stands for the Reverse Mentoring Practice. It was actually founded by Stacey Johnson, who's an associate professor at University of Nottingham, who's currently our chief scientific officer as well. So she actually developed the framework, the model and the program and delivered this and piloted it across different sectors. So she used to work in the NHS. So that's where we actually developed the phenomenon within that sector in itself. And we are a social action model, and we do action research, which means we're constantly developing and improving what we do as well. We are a participatory, educative consulting style organization, which means that we emphasize inclusion in every element and process of what we do. What that means is we work with organizations like yourselves to design and plan and implement the project in of itself, and also building the capacity within your service to be able to explore how we can deliver that is most effective for you and the needs of your organization when it comes to equality, diversity and inclusion. really quickly, a bit more background. So the company journey today, we are quite, you could say, new company. So, you know, in 2010 was the first time that Stacey actually encountered reverse mentoring, then developed the phenomenon and worked in partnership with the university and the NHS to deliver the first pilot with one organization. Now, as I mentioned before, it's an action research methodology. As a result of that, Stacey then grew and facilitated and piloted again, the same program with 4 NHS trusts, and then inventing and testing out new methodologies to ensure that the framework is robust. Then in 2018, we then started developing the remedy consultancy, so the reverse mentoring practice consultancy, and we started working with a variety of different sectors. So we went out into the NHS, social care, higher education, and the organisation and the company grew, and we had one consultant. However, recently we have grown immensely because the demand for reverse mentoring has increased, but the impact has been greatly acknowledged by a lot of our partners and organisations. And we have now actually delivered the programs to 55 plus organisations, and that works around 280 programs across the UK. And we now have 11 members of staff. So for a new company, that's quite huge. So we have spun out of the university. So we are a company on its own, and we are now looking to grow as well. So you might be wondering, what is reverse mentoring? And I don't like giving the answers, but this goes out to the people who answered the survey and they said they've heard about it before. This goes out to you. What have you heard? So what do you think is reverse mentoring? Just pop your hand up. I'll take one person and I'll let Victoria select that person. So who'd like to tell me, what do they think reverse mentoring is? Give me ideas. Don't be shy. Do you have any hands up? I can see a hand up, Victoria. I don't know if that's a question. Sean Taylor, I can see.
Sean Taylor.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thank you for picking me there. Yeah, so my understanding of reverse mentoring was initially, I think, done by a motor company in America around a CAO trying to get people who would just join the organisation to try to pass on their information around, for example, IT or software where they weren't particularly adept in them areas. And unlike mentoring that we see traditionally, where it is done by somebody usually senior or more experienced in the organisation, this is flipped, and it could be somebody new or very new in the organisation. So, for example, reverse mentoring of what the culture feels to them in their organisation when you've perhaps been in it for 30 years, as a rough example for me.
Thank you, Sean. You touched upon the history. So it's actually in the 1980s when the first of its kind was introduced in the general electrical industry, where they did a cross-generational piece of work where they brought young people in, apprentices, they brought in internships, and they were like, hey, hold up. These young people have got a lot of knowledge that we can learn from. So how can they use their knowledge to help us to better the industry, to really upskill ourselves? So actually the young people then started mentoring, reverse mentoring the senior leaders. So the people in the electrical industry. So Sean, you bang on there. So just really quickly, the first definition that was kind of brought about was by Wendy Murphy from Babson College in 2012. So she defined it, she did a piece of work around looking at the stereotypes held against women. And she identified reverse mentoring as such. Reverse mentoring is when a worker in a senior position is mentored by someone in a more junior position than themselves. But what does it mean for us at reverse mentoring practice? We've expanded that definition so that we can apply it to equality, diversity, inclusion. So we've expanded that definition to include people with less perceived power, from a disadvantaged position, from an underrepresented group, from a marginalized oppressed group, to get involved and mentor someone in a more powerful position than themselves. So we want them to be able to have the autonomy, the voice, to be able to use the lived experience and share that with their senior leader and what it means to be them in an organization. The reason why we do that is because it's to shine a light on what are the systematic institutional barriers that they are experiencing, in addition to their protected characteristics. I know already from a few conversations prior that, you know, we want to understand why is there a lack of representation within the public sector of people from Black and Asian minority ethnic group within senior leadership, or even in the frontline staff. And I know Victoria and I and Sundeep was speaking about this, and something that was raised was actually the representation of Black and Asian minority ethnic groups within the fire service in the front line. Why is that? And this is a unique opportunity to be able to have a very intimate conversation with those individuals using the remedy framework and model. What we do within our company on our programs, we ensure that the framework supports and delivers high impact reverse mentoring relationships for individuals and organizations that want to enhance key thing, cultural humility, that equips them to achieve transformative inclusion on a more institutional level. So we're not looking at just individual conversations and looking at and focusing on that. It's like, how does this experience, lived experience of this individual translate into the wider fabrics of our organization? What can we do as senior leaders on this call do to improve and enhance the culture of the organization, but also ensure that we do equity in action? So we transform organizations through the power of reverse mentoring. We aim to eliminate discrimination one conversation at a time. And we are disruptive. We are relentless and compassionate. What that means is these types of conversations are very different. They're the types of conversations you may have engineered out of your everyday in your professional role. We want to reignite that and bring those conversations back in these intimate conversations to, deepen our understanding about particular topics that we don't really have the opportunity to discuss outside of that space. So how do we do it? We do it through the remedy framework. So I'm going to quickly give you an overview. This is the remedy framework, just to give you an idea on how it works. So we actually work with the organizations, as I mentioned before. We meet up with the executive boards. We actually get the commitment, and then you have the commitment that they want to go ahead. We develop the program and project. Your project lead or assigned staff member would work with us, and we will develop a plan of the action as well. So when will it start and when will it end? And then we recruit your reverse mentors and mentees. And once we've done that recruitment process, we begin the training and preparation. So both mentors and mentees get the training and preparation days. And then as a result of that, once they've completed it, we at R&P, we then match them up to avoid any conflict or bias from the organizations they may be from. We take that and undertake that role. And once we have paired them up, they then go away and begin the 6-month relationship of reverse mentoring. So we give you peer support sessions, mentee reflective sessions, an opportunity to come together to decompress and really reflect together as a community. And that's what we want to do. So when I am mentioning this, we actually delivered reverse mentoring within Cornwall. And the reason why I'm bringing Cornwall up here is because we've got Victoria, who actually got involved through the Cornwall ICS. So at Cornwall itself, we've delivered 4 cohorts. They are actually looking to deliver their own cohorts in-house. But in the last cohort, we had Victoria, who took the role of a mentee, and we actually paired her up with a mentor as part of that program. And just to give you an overview, through the 4 cohorts that we actually delivered, we had 46 pairs, majority of which continued with the relationship. So ensuring that they have an accountability buddy, they have someone to reflect with, someone that they can include within those discussions of when we're talking about strategy, when we're talking about equality impact assessments, when we're talking about representation, the recruitment process, we're talking about bias. They actually brought them into those conversations and they had a sounding board. So as a result of that, what we have done is we actually targeted people from all protected characteristics. So within our company, we do provide specific models according to the needs of your organization. And at Cohort, they wanted to open up the doors to everybody. So they wanted everybody with protected characteristics to get involved. And as a result, we had Victoria getting paired up with her mentor. So this is where I'm going to bring Victoria in. So Victoria has completed the reverse mentoring program at Cornwall ICS cohort 3 program, and I want to bring her in to discuss her experience partaking in the program. So Victoria, thank you firstly for agreeing for me to ask you questions in the session. So just to kick us off, Victoria, I just wanted to ask, what initially motivated you to partake in a program like reverse mentoring?
Yeah, thanks, Robina. So I first heard of reverse mentoring at a wider Cornwall Council leadership meeting. So Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service is a service of Cornwall Council. So I have the benefit of having a wider role across Cornwall Council, and we had a leadership team meeting, and yourselves joined that meeting and gave an overview of reverse mentoring. For me, it was an absolute no-brainer to join part of that programme, and it really excited me, and the presentation was really, really engaging. I think for us, lack of diversity in Cornwall, and that's in Cornwall Council as well as Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service, is a challenge. We only live and work through our own lens. And I think it's really important for us to understand, looking at lived and worked experience in Cornwall through someone else's lens, to understand how we could improve diversity within our workplace. Only ever seen life through my own perspective, and probably very naive actually going into this programme. I think it was very open and honest up front that it could be an uncomfortable experience. And it was for me about being comfortable with the uncomfortable and entering in something. And the key was those conversations. Also recognising, we talked quite a lot at that introductory meeting around being in a position of power and having influence within an organisation, and how we can use that position of power to become more inclusive and look at the culture of our organisation as a whole. So yeah, the introductory session solved it for me.
I just want to ask, in terms of kind of the training, the preparation before you met your mentor, how was that for you?
Yeah, I think the training was incredibly important. I've been in the role of a mentor for a number of years, mentoring younger people in the organisation, mentoring managers. So actually going into that position of mentee was it wasn't easy. It's so easy to jump in and try and play that mentor role. So I think the training was really important to kind of set the expectations that, you've got to step back, you've got to let someone else take the lead. Yeah, the training was really good because it was split between mentor and mentee training. So I attended the training with a whole cohort of other mentees. So we all had the same understanding, what to expect, and it was held separately to the mentors. And I think that was really important for us to ask any questions, raise any concerns or challenges we had at that point in a safe environment. So that was really good. I have to say, my first meeting going in with my mentor, I was quite nervous. Went into that with a little trepidation. We were given the heads up, this could be difficult. There could be challenging issues raised. There could be difficult conversations. And I think what was really, really important with that first meeting with my mentor, who was called Aruka, she is a young Black graduate within Cornwall Council, and we set our stall out right from the beginning. This was a safe space, confidential space, nothing was off the table. We were both open to having difficult, challenging questions thrown at ourselves to enable, exactly as you said, Robina, have those conversations that you don't feel able to have in the wider work environment. And it is that safe space, and it is exploring things that you may be either too embarrassed to explore in the wider workplace, not sure if you can ask the questions that you've got in your mind. And it was really important in that first session that we set out expectations on each other, and it kind of set the foundation for our relationship, really. Which has continued way past the 6 months. So I've made a genuine friend out of this experience, and we continue to meet regularly.
Yeah, I think what's really powerful is you mentioned that is, right at the earlier on, you said sometimes you have your own kind of filters and you have your own kind of worldview. And I think one thing that when we say the power of reverse mentoring is actually putting you in a position where you are going to be opening the horizon of the world, because, the world is not black and white, it's all shades of grey. And what we do is try and understand that and bring back those conversations in a more intimate way. I just want to ask, Victoria, what changes and benefits did you identify while you were in the program, and also after the program? Like what was new for you? What did you feel you gained prior, that you gained within the program from before?
Yeah, the programme for me has been absolutely invaluable. My eyes have been completely open to the challenges facing a young Black woman in Cornwall, experiences that I've never experienced myself, day-to-day lived experience that myself as a white woman would never experience, and never you know, quite naively, never thought somebody going to a supermarket could be a challenge. It's just daily experiences that we do without even thinking about. Also, I'm on the Women in the Fire Service network, but actually what this opened my eyes to is I'm only seeing life through a white woman in relation to the Women in Fire Service network. And it's that intersectionality aspect as well. You can be Black and a woman, and it's a very, very different experience to being a white woman. So I think there was a lot of considerations that I quite naively went in there thinking, oh, I represent women in the fire service. No, actually, I don't. I represent one very small aspect of women in the fire service. And I think some of these conversations helped me to really understand that I can't represent everybody, even though I'd love to think I can. My mentor would give me homework for each session, and that was really, really powerful for me. So she would send me a really challenging, difficult survey that would ask me questions that made me feel incredibly uncomfortable, and then we'd talk about them afterwards, and we'd explore them, how my experiences compare to her experiences. So she really gave me the view of life through a completely different lens. There were times where we tried to solve world problems, and we reminded ourselves that we had to step back. Let's one step at a time. Small changes can make a significant difference, yeah, our conversations have been incredibly important. I've been given books to read that I would never have considered reading before that have opened my eyes, and we meet together and we discuss those, and I'll ask questions that I probably wouldn't have been comfortable to ask about the content of those books before. I've, off the back of my work with Aruka, I've started to get her really involved in some of the cultural work that we're doing in our fire service. So I think everyone on this call recognises there's quite a lot of work to do around culture in fire and rescue services, and we have our own programme in Cornwall. So I've started to involve Aruka in those and running past programmes, and built a much wider network in Cornwall for us at Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service. So we're far more involved now in Black Voices Cornwall. They've come and delivered training to our senior team. So it's really triggered a build of a wider network where we can involve some of the work that we're doing. And it could be really simple things, and it's kind of opened my eyes to I'm responsible for policy. Again, policy is written from one perspective. It's written by white males and females sat in an office. What are we doing to deliver and write our policies from different perspectives? And again, this programme's opened my eyes to that. We need to be involved in those wider networks and our communities in developing the policies and strategies that we're delivering as a service, because our communities are a lot broader than our representation in our service. So it's been really powerful and impacted probably a number of areas that I hadn't even considered at the outset of the programme.
And I think that's really powerful to see, because when you think about it, we often as senior leaders, we're very good problem solvers. So what happens if we do tend to provide these policies, these strategies, but more often than not, sometimes we can experience a disconnect with the people who are experiencing it on, on the shop floor. So, at the frontline staff members, is actually what's going on for them. And it's really powerful, Victoria, you said as a result of this programme that you've continued with that relationship. So it's almost that element of scrutiny or accountability there, that you've got someone that you can lean on to say, actually, hey, hold up. Put a foot on the brake. Have you thought about this? And I think it's quite significantly powerful for you to share that. If you were to describe your experience in the reverse mentoring program, having heard all that powerful change and systematic action you're taking, how would you describe it in one word? What word would you use to describe your experience in the program?
That's a really hard question, isn't it? I'd have to sum all of that in one word, especially when I like words. It'd probably have to be inspiring. I think I've been hugely inspired by my mentor, her strength, her perseverance, the challenges she's faced that I haven't. I would absolutely say I've been truly inspired, so inspiring. I knew I'd struggle with one word, but I got there. One word.
You got them
Inspiring.
then. We heard inspiring, which is absolutely amazing, and it's really powerful to hear that as well, because the one thing that we know more often than not is junior staff members or staff members on the front line, they tend to kind of not have this opportunity to speak with someone that they deem as the powerful or the most influential. So breaking that barrier to be able to have that type of conversation, Victoria, in of itself is something very different. And it's almost like you're re-engineering the process that you took to become a senior leader by taking the emotion out and getting all that vulnerability out and putting it back into the conversation, so you can have that genuine human connection with somebody to truly understand actually how is this person experiencing the organization that we actually responsible for. So the one last question, Victoria, and then I'm going to bring it back to the Q&A, is, would you recommend this program? We've got 187 colleagues on call, and I'm just wondering if you would recommend this program, and if so, what would your reason be?
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. I haven't been the only person from Cornwall Fire and Rescue Service to undertake the programme. We've had a number of individuals ranging from middle managers to senior managers, including our Chief Fire Officer, that has undertaken the programme. It's been hugely beneficial. We've had mentors from various backgrounds, various different protected characteristics, and they've all had a different impact in their own way on the individuals that have taken part. One thing that is undertaken through this programme is we have regular check-ins throughout, and there's also after the 6 months a debrief with all those that have taken part, both combined with mentors and mentees, but also separate. And the session that I went to with the mentees that had taken part, you kind of sat back and it kind of blew me away. No one's experience was the same, but everybody had a huge benefit as being part of the experience. And you talked about that there is a real mutual benefit as well, which I don't think my mentor had anticipated. And she's thanked me a number of times regarding the confidence it's given her now to speak to people more senior and in perceived positions of power. Yeah. And she goes into meetings now with senior colleagues with a renewed confidence, and they're just people. We're all human. We're all just people at the end of the day. And she's had real benefit from being part of the programme from the other side as well. So yeah, I couldn't speak highly enough of the programme, and I'd hugely recommend it to anybody on the call to take part.
Thank you so much for that, Victoria, and just sharing your experience with us as well. I want to take the chance as well at this moment in time to share with you what other colleagues or senior leaders, board members who have actually completed the 6-month programme like Victoria, and what they've had to say in other sectors as well. And we've had, because we delivered it in the NHS, and we had a board member who participated in the programme, and this is what they said to us, that this has been the most important piece of work I have done in the 30 years I've worked for the NHS. And then another person who was in the HE sector, who was actually a white middle class man, he would describe himself as that, and was actually had a protected characteristic and was from the LGBTQ plus community. So he actually came to this program saying, I think I know what it means to be discriminated against. But then when he completed the program, he came back to us and he said, it's like she turned on the light in a room where I thought the light was already on. I didn't know there was more light. EDI is ever evolving, ever changing. And one thing that we have to be a bit open to is the fact that we are going to be embarking on that journey as well. So when we think we know something, there's always something else to learn. And that's the beautiful thing about this relationship, because you have that space of mercy and compassion where you meet each other where you are at, and be able to ask those difficult conversations. I'm sure many of you on this call have often witnessed something, heard something, may have felt uncomfortable by hearing something in the workplace, or whether it's outside of work, that's made you feel a bit uncomfortable, and maybe you have reflected on that particular thought by yourself on the drive home. Or maybe you've shared that with your partner, you know, or this happened at work, and there's kind of like a disconnect. But what we encourage is having those conversations with the very people who are impacted by those systematic barriers, institutional discrimination. We want to hear them. We want to hear them tell us so that we can move towards acting in solidarity, moving towards that action, really reframing the way we think, being more curious and being able to apply that in our everyday practice, as Victoria said. We also want to share with you what the mentors have had to say. And this is what some of our mentors had to say. Someone actually said to us, it's a gift, isn't it? Reverse mentoring. They felt like they were giving a gift to their mentee, because without them, they would have not been able to see that world. So that's what they felt. And then another person who was actually from Cornwall, ICS, said, it's completely changed my working life and given me a lot of personal and professional satisfaction. Just to end, you know, when we talk about reverse mentoring in the fire service, Victoria has told us, you know, a fantastic different ways that you are applying it by looking at the women's network in a different lens, looking at a different perspective, doing different things, seeing different things. And I kind of took some time to look at your strategy as well. And I've noticed that in the sector report in 2022, it was actually highlighted that the fire service in of itself wants to develop the cultural values and behaviour that makes the UK fire service a great place to work for all our people. And a programme like such enables everybody to really embody their authentic self and come to a conversation and harness the realities of what one person may be experiencing and applying that to the wider organisation. So when we talk about looking at equality, diversity in action, this is exactly what we're talking about. Looking at not only the data, not only the programs, but looking at what can we do in additional to really change the status quo, to really change the culture that we have in our organisation. And we hope that through listening to me and Victoria, you see the benefits that it can bring to you and your organisation, especially when it comes to developing the cultural humility, the culture of the organisation, when ability to provide excellent service by diversifying your staff, really understanding what it takes to promote inclusion from the very people that are from underrepresented groups. That brings me an end to this fabulous talk, and it has been really interesting for me. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask me some questions. But however, I've got a surprise for you all. I actually have invited Stacey Johnson, who is the founder, the CEO and the scientific chief officer, to this call as well, because I want you to get the most out of this session. So I've invited Stacey Johnson, who's on call, who'll introduce herself fabulously, who is also here to answer questions alongside myself as a facilitator, practitioner and consultant. So the floor is yours. I will get Stacey to introduce herself. And Victoria, do I pass it to you for the Q&A?
Yes, so if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to put your hand up and ask them yourselves, or pop the questions in the chat and I will work through them. So I'll give everyone a minute or two just to have a consideration around what you might want to ask in relation to reverse mentoring. And in the meantime, would Stacey like to introduce herself?
Thank you, Victoria. Hello, everybody. I'm Stacey Johnson. As Ruby said, the CSO at the Reverse Mentoring Practice, but I'm part of the public sector because I'm a nurse by background. At the university, I teach nurses, midwives, physiotherapists. So I'm a big fan of fire officers and the fire service and fire and rescue as well. So absolutely delighted to be here. And thank you so much, Victoria, for being brave enough, because you remember this was a broader project with the NHS, social services. So it was really brilliant to see the leadership of Cornwall Fire and Rescue stepping forward and saying, I will go first. Very, very powerful what you've done, Victoria. Lovely to see everybody. Keep the questions coming.
Thank you. So we do have a question in the chat. How do you encourage mentors from underrepresented groups to participate?
So how do we get them to participate? So with what we do we do some very kind of targeted kind of recruitment activities as well. So what we will do is we will work with your project lead or the person who's managing the program within your organization. We'll work closely with them and look for opportunities to actually liaise and have a conversation with the potential mentors you're thinking of. So if you have any staff networks, you have any groups, we will put ourselves into those situations and we'll probably facilitate a conversation with them to try and get their buy-in. We also have some communications. We do all of that, by the way. So the administrative stuff, we bear that burden. You don't need to do that. So we will draft up the communications for you. We'll draft up the registration form for you, and we will actively encourage you to share that within your internal networks and within your kind of services as well, in order to try and target those reverse mentors. So we are very explicit in what we do. So what that means is we will provide the communications to share. We will ask you to invite us along to any set meetings. We'll do engagement sessions. We do around 2 or 3 before we actually launch the actual program in of itself, just to try and drum up that excitement, that enthusiasm, that interest, and get people to register on board as well. More often than not, Stacey's here as well. Like Stacey can add to this, is that we actually find that we have an oversubscription of mentors. So even though this is requiring a very high level of courage and bravery, we find reverse mentors saying, despite their fears of being seen as, I don't know, like they feel like they may not be believed, for example, some of which have shared with us, they feel intimidated to speak to their power, to speak to those who are in power. Some have even told us they see senior leaders as their betters. Despite all of those fears and anxieties, they still put themselves forward. So we always often find we have an oversubscription of mentors, which is amazing. So we do a lot of interactive work, a lot of online communication. We will draft that. We work with you to make sure it meets, the language, the communication that you need for your organization. Hopefully that answers your question. Just let me know if it doesn't. Stacey, if you'd like to add anything, please do at this moment.
I've seen a great question in the chat. Hannah, fantastic question. Is reverse mentoring the same as reciprocal mentoring? Many benefits from both sides. So those two terms are often used interchangeably, but they are very different. So if you could imagine, if, for example, you really want to create a situation in which the more junior person, the person with a disability, the person from an underrepresented group is in a position where they are saying, come and walk in my world with me as your guide. So the junior person is leading the conversation. Think about some of the leaders on the call, or some of you who may have been working with leaders. Think about if it's a reciprocal relationship, an equal relationship, will it stay equal? Will the conversation stay equal if we try and start off equal? Reciprocal mentoring, mutual, equal, taking turns to be mentor and mentee. With reverse mentoring, we're actively saying the more junior person is the mentor and is leading the conversation. And what we tend to see is that it's more likely then that the conversation will stay equal than with reciprocal mentoring, So reciprocal mentoring works really well when you've got people who are, really confident, very articulate, where the organization, the leaders are well known, it's a small organization. But if it is quite a big, very complex organization where people will be intimidated by being in an equal relationship with a leader, we suggest you start off with reverse mentoring first. If you're also trying to accelerate impact and have impact at organizational level, we'll also suggest reverse mentoring, because what the emphasis there is for the leader to use the stories and experiences of the more junior person to act at organizational level. Whereas with reciprocal mentoring, the action is often, I'm going to advise you how to help you in your career. I'm going to advise you and coach you to plan for an interview, but you're also going to give me some information about being a disabled person in the fire service, right? So the impact there is more limited to the one-to-one relationship, whereas reverse mentoring, the impact tends to be broader because it's at organizational level. Hannah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. It's really helpful.
I just wanted to add, I just looked at a comment in the chat box, some elaboration on support. So, you know, the support we provide our reverse mentors and mentees. So it's not one of those things where we set you up and then we leave you to it. We actually walk alongside you. So whilst you are walking with your mentors, we will be on that journey with you as well. So we provide you with mentee reflective sessions because we know peer learning is so powerful. We provide mentors with peer support sessions. So they have sessions throughout the 6 months and both parties have those sessions, and we actively within those, we share best practices, but we may also share our inquisitive thinking. So if you have been triggered to think about something quite differently, that is your space to be able to share that. And it's also to hold each other accountable as well. So it's quite a powerful space, and it's always facilitated by one of us practitioners, i.e. myself, Stacey, or our fellow colleagues within the company, and we will help facilitate that. The other thing I want to add on that as well, Victoria touched upon it as well, right at the end of the 6 months, we don't do a closing session where we come to an abrupt end. We do a closing transition session. Everything we do intentionally. We do it closing transition because we don't want the relationship to come to a complete stop. It's about actually, where do we go from here? What does this mean for me and the organization? You know, and we had a powerful example from Victoria, like continuing the relationship, looking at how the mentor can support Victoria within in the elements of work that Victoria is doing in terms of the strategy, the forum, looking at things in a different perspective, a lens. That could be you. Having that sounding board alongside you in that process, and what does it mean for you in that journey? So we, in that closing transition session, what also transpires is the mentors will highlight key themes. It's like a celebration. This is what we enjoyed, this is what we gained, and then after that we look at actually what were the key themes and what can we do as a collective to really reform equality and diversity and inclusion, to really look at what needs to be done, what really matters, what is the priority at this moment. So those are the conversations that occur. And then we hope as a result of that, the mentors and mentees will continue those conversations outside of the program. And whilst we may not, you know, after the 6 months, you know, we don't facilitate any more sessions, we are still on call. So if you wanted to reach out to us, we're more than happy to, you know, be able to have a chat with you, but you're never on your own. So I just wanted to add that as well. So Victoria, over to you, next question.
Yeah, so we've got quite a lot of questions around the process of getting involved, but before we cover those, I'd like to invite Rob McDougall has his hand up. Hi, Rob.
I joined a little bit late, I'm afraid, Victoria, but good to hear about your experiences. I just wanted to share some of our experiences here in Oxfordshire County Council, where we've run a what we call a reciprocal mentoring programme, and I think it's interesting to hear that, obviously, to hear that description from Stacey about the difference, because I don't think we fully understood that, and actually listening to you talk about it was really interesting. But I guess the piece of learning that I took from it is that we had mixed success, and it really is about the engagement of the mentees in supporting their mentors, and also getting the right support in for the mentors as well, and realizing that what we ended up with is some areas where it worked extremely well and people felt very kind of empowered by it and could see having an impact. In other areas, because it didn't, people, and probably through no fault of their own, because the senior leaders didn't give it the time and energy that they probably wanted to or were able to, it actually can have quite a negative effect. So it's really important to make sure that if you're going to embark on these programs, A, you're getting the right support, but also B, making sure that those senior leaders are really committed to it, and understand, and this is why it's really useful to hear your experience, Victoria, understand how if they approach it in the right way, it can be a hugely beneficial process to go through. It can really expand our thinking and our learning. But if it's just if you approach it as in, right, all the senior leaders have got to now go away and do this without being brought into the process, it just creates tensions, because you really have to prioritize it. We all know, as senior people in the organization have very tight calendars and diaries, and it's got to be right at the top of the priority list to make sure that the mentors who come forward really feel like it's valued. And I think that's just the one bit of learning I shared. And we saw good and bad. So we saw really positive stuff, but also we saw some quite damaging situations because people weren't able to give it the time. So, but I'm happy to share that learning with anyone. We are going to embark on our second version of the program, trying to take what we've learned from the past. So again, a massive supporter of it, and seeing how it can make real change in the organisation.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rob. I don't know if Stacey wants to come back, but touching upon that, Rob, we've actually recently done a decision-making tool for reciprocal reverse mentoring that could help guide you to decide what is best for my organization at this moment in time. And that touches upon what Stacey just shared. So we are actually looking to launch that pretty soon. So we will share all that information with you to help you in that journey as well. So I'm just going to pass it to Stacey to respond to you, Rob.
Yes, I just wanted to really reiterate what Rob said. So one of the reasons that I was motivated to develop a framework is for exactly that reason. Often people are starting reverse mentoring programs. So you remember, if it was used for its original purpose, which is new graduates, mentoring senior executives in General Electric as a company, of course they're going to have interesting conversations. When you layer on ethnicity, gender, disability, you have to be really intentional. So we say you can't just pair people up and hope for the best. And you also can't just pair people up and say, bye, we'll see you in 6 months' time. I hope you're all right. Right. So this is why we have the reflection sessions for the leaders. So it's to keep them accountable and them holding each other accountable, but also to get them to really process the experience, not just consume stories of the junior staff. It's to really process, what am I learning from that lived experience, and hold each other to account. And then the ongoing monthly support for the junior staff, which is right. How are you building your confidence? Are the leaders taking over the conversation? How do you take back the mentor role? We often say to the leaders, give back the mentee role. If you find yourself rescuing, coaching, mentoring the junior person, then you are taking over their reverse mentor role. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I really agree with that that comment from you. You really do have to keep in touch and engage the junior staff and the leaders, because you're right. You can get that very mixed effect. It can be quite damaging on both sides if you're not really intentional.
Thank you for that. I'm really conscious of time. We've only got a few minutes left. I'm hoping between yourselves, Robina and Stacey, you could just outline the process and how fire and rescue services can get involved, and how they encourage their leaders in their organisations to get involved in the programme. If we could cover that in the last few minutes, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's completely fine. We can give you more detail because we're conscious of time. But the first thing as initial kind of call to action would be, do check out our website, because a lot of information that you probably need would be on there, and reach out to us. We're more than happy. If your organization is interested, then we are happy to sit with you to have a conversation about what that involves and what the initial steps would be, which would be to meet up with you, find out what the needs are, have a discussion. What are the pains of your organization? What's going on? And what is the best kind of method or approach for reverse mentoring at your organization. So we will have that discussion. So I have put on screen really quickly our website. You will find the decision-making tool, as Rob mentioned before, reciprocal or reverse mentoring, but we've also got the email address there that you can also contact us on. And we are currently also hosting some free webinars on our LinkedIn page as well. So take advantage of those, which covers, just recently we actually spoke about reciprocal versus reverse mentoring, Rob, if you're interested. So we'll be releasing that pretty soon. So we did have a conversation with a few people that actually worked with us, and they shared with us their insights about what they gained from the two different types of mentoring. So that's it from me. But Stacey, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of process that I may have forgotten?
No, I think you've been comprehensive. I saw a really interesting question in there about it could be used not just for the protected characteristics, but for other things. So people new to the organization could be reverse mentoring. So this was for fresh eyes. We had somebody at Guy's and St. Thomas's. They've just started their 10th cohort last year, Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital. And it's people who are carers, remember, not protected by law, being a carer. Somebody said, I am here because I'm a working class young white guy. He looked young. Working class young white guy from Liverpool, working in London. He says, when I start talking with this working class Liverpudlian accent, I feel like my career is at risk, So it doesn't just have to be race, ethnic, sexual orientation, etc. It's also other characteristics that maybe people are saying to you, I feel marginalized because, and so really it is quite broad. You can have, quite a few different characteristics from reverse mentors. But delighted to be here with you today. Thank you so much for having us. Back to you, Victoria.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So a huge thank you to Robina and Stacey for joining us and giving us an overview of reverse mentoring. I hope you found the session helpful. In the chat, there is a survey, an evaluation survey for today's session. So please give your feedback of how you found today's session. That would be great. Also in the chat is information regarding the next Listen and Learn session, which will take place on the 23rd of February. And that is in relation to International Stand Up to Bullying Day. So hopefully you can join the session then as well. Conscious of time, we've hit 2 o'clock. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us and have a good day. Thanks all.